This is the Suzuki Across, a plug-in hybrid SUV. So why does it look like a Toyota RAV4? Watch this to find out. Suzuki Across is one of the two rebadged Toyotas offered by Suzuki in Europe. The other one is the Swace, or the Toyota Corolla wagon, with the less powerful 1.8-liter hybrid powertrain. Beside different badges, the Across looks almost identical to the RAV4. It took me a while to spot a slightly different bumper, restyled headlamps and grille, but in the back the designers just called it quits and went for a pint. It's unmistakably a RAV4. What's up with the Masquerade then? In Europe, Suzuki sells about 250,000 cars, and that's in a good year. Recently, they took a hit because of WLTP and the pandemic. Meanwhile, in 2020, Suzuki sold about 2.5 million cars globally, and about half of those were sold in India, about 600,000 in Japan, and the rest was sold around the world, and less than half of that was in Europe. So it doesn't really make much sense to develop new powertrains for Europe, right? Meanwhile, in order to meet the emissions requirements in Europe, Suzuki needs to keep low CO2 average across the fleet. You'd think that Suzuki, being a car maker of small cars, should be fine. However, smaller and lighter cars have to meet stricter norms than heavier cars. Enter the 2-ton Across PHEV, which emits on paper 22 grams of CO2 per kilometer. For reference, the Suzuki Ignis mild hybrid I reviewed recently emits 120 grams of CO2. Now that we know why, let's talk about implementation. A disclaimer: most of what I'm talking about also applies to the Toyota RAV4 plug-in hybrid. The Toyota gets a bit more equipment, but otherwise they're the same.
Suzuki Across gets its motivation from a 2.5-liter petrol engine and two electric motors. The petrol engine has 185 horsepower, while the electric motors have 182 horsepower in the front and 54 horsepower in the rear. They all have different torque, and everything goes through a planetary gearbox, but the end result is 306 horsepower. Toyota doesn't disclose the torque figure, so Suzuki doesn't either. The 0 to 100 km per hour time is 6 seconds. I was driving in winter conditions with wet snow on the roads, so I got 8.3 seconds 0 to 100 km per hour and 5.6 from 80 to 120 km per hour. That's on slippery surface in the winter. I also had to brake hard because I missed the place where I stopped to reposition the GoPros, and Across stopped really well. I suspect that's thanks to Dunlop Winter Sport 5 tires.
Across masks well the extra 300 kilograms it has over the non-plug-in hybrid RAV4. Sorry for jumping back and forth between Suzuki and Toyota, but it's not my fault. Now, the traction batteries are in the floor, and this keeps the center of gravity low.
The water-cooled batteries have 18 kWh capacity and allow for up to 75 km of zero-emissions driving. While I'm recording this review, we're experiencing sub-zero temperatures even during the day, so the best I got was about 60 km. For reference, the Opel Grandland X Hybrid 4, which I drove during a heat wave, achieved about 50 km from a 13 kWh battery, and it was also very quick.
A question I get asked often when it comes to PHEVs is what happens when the battery runs out? Well, good news, it never runs out completely or below a critical level unless you're driving the car hard on a track. Once the charge drops below a certain level, the car switches from electric to regular hybrid mode, where the petrol engine mainly spins the front tires and extra energy goes into the battery, which then powers the electric motor, which helps the petrol engine. Sometimes it just goes straight to the battery. Anyway, and then depending on how the engineers designed the PHEV, it may be possible to also use the petrol engine to recharge the traction battery to a level that's sufficient to drive in pure EV mode again for another couple of dozen kilometers if necessary. Of course, this will affect your fuel economy.
Another question I get is, what's the real-life fuel economy? Well, that depends. If you want to get a plug-in hybrid, you have to consider several factors. Do you have a place to recharge the batteries? How much will it cost to recharge? What's your daily commute? How often and how long road trips are you planning to take?
Assuming you have excess energy from, say, your home solar system, your daily commute is within about 50 kilometers or so, and the weather is moderate, you can drive this car for free. Well, sort of. On colder days, the petrol engine may kick in every now and then to keep up the temperature, just in case you want to accelerate suddenly. However, you can still end up not seeing a petrol station for a year. If you drive further, the fuel economy will suffer, obviously. Probably you'll get about 2-3 liters per 100 kilometers if you keep it below 100 kilometers per day. On longer journeys, you'll eventually end up using 8-9 liters per 100 kilometers. But assuming this is not something you do every day, and at the end of the day there will be a charger, you're fine again. So basically, this is not a car for frequent long road trips.
Charging from a home socket takes about 7 to 8 hours. Deep down in the onboard computer menu, buried are the charging and departure schedules. The former is important if you want to take advantage of, say, cheaper tariffs. The latter if you want to heat or cool the cabin before the departure. It helps get better range too, so it's recommended. Beside electric, automatic, hybrid and charge powertrain modes, there are also eco, normal and sport drive modes, and a trail mode if you're feeling adventurous. The computer simulates a limited slip differential by braking the wheels, which lose traction. Today my little test hill is covered in snow. I would like to emphasize this is not a test how far will the car go off-road. I'm just putting strain on the all-wheel drive system by forcing a situation where two wheels diagonally across, no pun intended, lose grip. In this situation, all wheels have limited traction, so in order to get to the top, I need a bit more speed. I think if the ground was dry, the Across would have made it even without turning on the petrol engine.
Because the Suzuki Across is pretty much a Toyota RAV4, I will do the interior really quickly, and I suggest you check out my Toyota RAV4 hybrid review, link up here, for a more in-depth look on practicality. You'll also see how similar the two cars are. On the plus side, the two huge rubberized controls for the AC are great, especially when you're wearing gloves. This car gets only heated seats, while the Toyota RAV4 had also ventilated seats, so there were more buttons. So here you just have one, which goes low or high. There is also a heated steering wheel. I like it in the winter, and it's over your left knee where you can't find it. Next to it, where you also can't find it, is something very useful in the winter, and that's a heater for the lower part of the windscreen where the wipers are, so you don't damage them when they're frozen.
Suzuki Across doesn't get a 360 camera, which Toyota gets. There is also no virtual rear-view mirror. Power driver's seat has no memory function. There is no sat-nav, but at least there is Android Auto. I'm not sure if the RAV4 already got the Apple CarPlay update and if the Suzuki also got this update. A funny thing regarding the instrument cluster, the middle part is a digital display, but there are still analog gauges on the sides, and this modern plug-in hybrid still uses an arrow gauge to show the battery charge level. This is where the coolant temperature gauge is in the regular hybrid RAV4. In the back, the legroom and headroom are sufficient. There are air vents and 2 USB ports, a place for drinks in the door bins, as well as in the armrest. The side seats are heated and there are ISOFIX mounting points on them. The backrest has 2 tilt level adjustments. In the Hyundai Tucson you get more adjustment. The backrest splits only 40/60 and there is no pass-through for longer items. A little telltale sign you're in a Suzuki. On the speaker cover it says Across, where it says RAV4 in the Toyota. The PHEV boot is 490 liters. There is a mini spare under the floor. Because of the mini spare, the floor can't be used on the other side. The regular RAV4 has a double-sided floor, so you can carry something dirty and then wash it off easily. Here, there is an embossed wheel shape on the other side, so you wouldn't be able to flip the floor. Also, because of the spare wheel, there is no place to stow the load cover under the boot floor.
Like in the Toyota, also in the Suzuki it takes ages to close the tailgate, and you can't open it remotely without unlocking the car first. But the tailgate level can be adjusted from the onboard computer menu. There, now it's locked.
The price. There is only one spec for €58,000. You can get a RAV4 plug-in hybrid cheaper with more options. Why would you pick a Suzuki over the Toyota? I assume these will soon be heavily discounted, or maybe you have a better relation with your local Suzuki dealer. For 58 grand you can drive off into the sunset in much better cars than this one, albeit not necessarily plug-in hybrids.
Suzuki Across is a Toyota RAV4. It's well built, reliable, economical. I bet some of you would like to see a proper Vitara again, but if you want to go off-roading in a Suzuki, the Jimny is all you have left. And what do you think about the Suzuki Across? Would you consider buying one over a Toyota RAV4? And why? Let me know in the comment section below.
If you like my sarcastic, down-to-earth and possibly mildly amusing car reviews, join me every Friday at 3 p.m. Central European Time, and don't forget to subscribe and like this video as it helps me with the YouTube algorithm. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.